Yeah, as Craig mentioned, I'm Toby Petrice, and I appreciate the opportunity to present. I'm glad all of you joined today. I'm a research entomologist with the USDA Forest Service in the Northern Research Station. We're located in East Lansing, Michigan. So we have been dealing with emerald ash borer for a couple decades now. And today I'm just going to talk about some different EAB management options. As Christina mentioned, uh, emerald ash borer larvae feed in the vascular tissue of ash trees, and they actually spend most of their time in that part of the tree. So if the insect is on a 1 year life cycle, they'll spend about 9 to 10 months in the vascular tissue, but more often than not, they actually require 2 years to develop and could then spend like 22 months in the vascular tissue. The adults emerge in the summer, but are short-lived, and also the eggs. So this makes managing emerald ash borer quite a challenge. So the two options I'm going to talk about today are the use of insecticides and biological control. Insecticides can be very effective for protecting individual ash trees. However, it can be labor intensive and expensive. The target life stages are usually the larvae and the adults when using insecticides. Biological control is another option. It can provide landscape level impacts. It's also self-sustaining. So once you establish the natural enemies, they can persist and continue to provide services. However, the parasitoid population growth often lags behind EAB growth, which is pretty typical of biological control. And as a result, the EAB can do irreparable damage to the tree before the parasitoid populations catch up. And then the natural enemies that I'm going to talk about usually target the eggs or the feeding larva of emerald ash borer. So because the emerald ash borer spends so much time in the vascular tissue of the tree, systemic insecticides are usually the best option. And there are several products that can be used for controlling emerald ash borer. They vary in their efficacy, how often they need to be applied, and then also the technology and equipment needed for applying them. Emamectin benzoate is probably the most effective. It does require some sophisticated injection tools to treat the trees, but it can give 2 to 3 years of protection. The azadirachtin products, which are botanicals, they also provide pretty good control. They need to be applied every 1 to 2 years, also need to be injected into the tree. And then there are some neonicotinoids like dinotefuran and imidacloprid. These give less reliable control of emerald ash borer. However, it is nice that they're easier to apply either as a basal trunk spray or as a soil drench. So these are products that are easy for home owners to apply to their trees. And I just wanted to show you some data from some work that Deb McCullough and her team did in Michigan, looking or comparing some of the neonicotinoids with emamectin benzoate. So on the left-hand side, we have a figure showing the live larvae found in trees after they were dissected. These trees were treated one time, and you can see that for the dinotefuran and the imidacloprid treatments, they were not significantly different from the control. However, if we look at the emamectin benzoate treatment, we got, or they found almost no live larvae in trees treated with that product. If we move to the right, where trees were treated 2 consecutive years, we do see better control with the imidacloprid projects. But again, we get excellent control with the emamectin benzoate. So the neonicotinoids do help control emerald ash borer, but they need to be applied more frequently. Now, switching gears to biological control. So we initiated a classical biological control for emerald ash borer in 2007. We actually began exploration for biological control agents in EAB's native range of Northeast Asia back in 2003. To date, we have 4 parasitoids from its native range. So these are parasitoid wasps that lay eggs in either EAB eggs themselves or in or on emerald ash borer larvae. They are host specific in that if they do attack any of our native species, they're attacking our native Agrilis, and the native Agrilis that they do attack are actually considered tree pests themselves. The figure on the top right just shows where these parasitoids have been released so far in the US. So this graph is of data that we collected at sites where we released parasitoids in Michigan. And you can see that the different bars represent the different parasitoid species. And across the y-axis, or the x-axis, we have 6 different study sites where we worked at, and then on the y-axis we have the parasitism from each species, and quite a variation in parasitism rates among sites and species. But if we look at the overall parasitism rates, they range from 20 to 42% overall. And we usually get better parasitism rates from Spathia galena, which was it's actually a newer species from the Russian Far East that attacks emerald ash borer larvae. And then here's just another graph showing the efficacy of the parasitoids. So on the y-axis, we have EAB population growth, and on x-axis, we have the sample year. And so we created this figure using life table data that we collected by dissecting emerald ash borer infested ash trees and looked at the mortality of emerald ash borer over time. And you can see that the population growth of emerald ash borer declined by year at our study sites. Now, part of this has to be attributed to loss in host resources. So the fewer ash trees you have in the landscape, the lower the EAB population is going to be. But still, the natural enemies, both the introduced and native species, contributed to the population decline. And then if we just simply remove this one species, Spathia galena, you can see what EAB population growth would be like if we didn't have this species in the system. So there's strong evidence that the introduced biological control agents can significantly reduce EAB populations. However, we still have this population growth above 1, and we needed to be lower than that to sufficiently protect ash trees from emerald ash borer. So I also should mention that there are several native species that attack emerald ash borer. The 2 most common species that we see in Michigan are Phasgonophora sulcata and Atenacolis caperdi. These are both parasitoid species that attack emerald ash borer larvae. They actually attack our native Agrilis species, and when emerald ash borer was introduced, they also started using this host resource. Woodpeckers can also feed on emerald ash borer larvae. They primarily feed on the mature larvae that are in that J larval stage, so they've already completed development. So individuals that are removing from trees have already caused the damage that's going to occur to the trees. So this brings me on to like the current project we're working on where we're trying to integrate biological control with insecticides for area-wide management of emerald ash borer. As I mentioned before, the insecticides are very effective for controlling emerald ash borer, but it's not practical to treat all the trees in the stand. And then biological control has this lag time where we still see tree mortality before emerald ash borer parasitoids can catch up to the emerald ash borer population. So the strategy behind this is that the treated trees, especially if they're treated with emamectin benzoate, that very effective product, will not attract the parasitoids because they're not going to have larvae in them, and this is going to concentrate the parasitoids on the non-treated trees. The treated trees are going to lower the overall EAB populations in the area, either directly or also cause this neighboring effect or halo effect where the adults that also must feed on foliage are going to be moving around in the canopies of these trees and some will be feeding on these treated trees and dying and then not able to infest neighboring uninfested trees. And then we'll have the parasitoids again concentrated on these non-treated trees and helping protect trees in the stand, especially smaller trees. And this is just a little schematic or diagram of how this treatment would work. And we've actually replicated this at several sites in mid-Michigan. We're on our third year, so hopefully this year we'll have some good results. But basically how it works is first the parasitoids are introduced and established in an ash stand. And then after they're established, we treat what we would consider high value trees, whether they're ecologically important, economically, or aesthetically important. To protect them from emerald ash borer, we would treat additional trees in the stand also to help reduce emerald ash borer populations. And then the insecticides are going to protect these larger trees, keep some large trees on the landscape, also help conserve genetic diversity in the stand. And then we would rely on the parasitoids to reduce populations in untreated trees, and especially in these young trees that are going to be filling in these gaps that are where the larger trees were killed by emerald ash borer. Just to finish up here, I just wanted to give you guys some information. If you're interested in obtaining parasitoids for release, you can request them by going onto this site, Map Biocontrol, and then entering the site where you'd like to release them. And then the folks at Brighton, Michigan will go through and select sites. They prioritize new locations, especially new states. You can also email them at this email address here. If you have questions about parasitoids as well, you can email me. But I recommend that you also check out this Emerald Ash Borer Biological Control Release and Recovery Guidelines. It has great information in it about obtaining the parasitoids, how to release them, when to release them, and then how to also confirm their establishment. And then finally, if you're interested in more information about insecticide treatments for emerald ash borer, this emerald ash borer info website is a great place to go. And then if you just Google emerald ash borer treatments, there are a lot of state and university bulletins out there that give great information. I love this bulletin here from Indiana DNR and Purdue that has this decision tree for deciding, if you want to treat your trees and if you should treat your trees. And with that, thanks for your time. I think we're going to move on to question and answer session. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you have.